Hey guys, welcome to Realization Hub. My name is Michelle, and I'm an intuitive counselor, energy healer, channeler, and astrologer who loves to teach sensitive and awakened souls how to be in command of their energy, manage their energy, and develop their intuition. Today's video is all about the full moon in Taurus, and I'm going to be going over some of the astrological aspects and the energetic themes that are coming through around this time. Right off the bat, I can tell you that if you are sensitive to energy, you will likely feel this full moon in your body. When I was tuning into the energy of this full moon, I was definitely sensing headaches, uh, stuff happening in the gut, um, as well as anxiety. Anxiety, waves of pain, waves of grief for some, and an overall heightened nervous system. This is a time of change that is really solidifying for us, possibly taking us to a new level of self-worth, seeing that this is a full moon in Taurus, a new level of foundations, a new level of finances or security, whether that be some internal type of security we're building, or some type of foundational security that we're changing in our lives, or some type of security regarding our finances and our money. Taurus is a sign that really builds its self-worth and knows its self-worth and responds to life through its values and through navigating life based on those values. This could be a change of values, a transformation that takes place in what we value and how we navigate our life based on those values, and just generally coming into more self-worth, going through a type of evolution around our self-worth. So let's go ahead and get into the details. All right, first I want to take note here that this is a full moon happening on November 15th, 2024. It's going to be on a Friday in Hawaii time. I'm not sure when it's going to be in your time, but um, this full moon is going to be in Taurus, and it's taking place at the 24th degree here of Taurus. Okay, so a full moon means the moon is opposite the sun here in this chart. The sun is in Scorpio. And a full moon it can represent a few things actually. Generally, when we come to a full moon, it can represent an ending. Typically when we have an ending in our lives, it can happen around a full moon where we're letting something go, something is ending, something is complete. Another thing that can happen around a full moon is something gets exalted. It gets it comes to a culmination or fruition of sorts. And then full moons can also be very revealing. They can clarify something, they can illuminate something for us. Something that was unseen can be seen in some way. And when I'm looking at this full moon in Taurus here at the 24th degree, if you have any personal planets, that means your sun, your moon, your Mercury, your Venus, or your Mars. Those are your personal planets. If you have any personal planet placements here in the later degrees of Taurus, or any of those fixed signs like Leo, um, Scorpio, and Aquarius, this full moon is going to kind of impact you the most. Okay, so this full moon in Taurus here, we've got the moon at the 24th degree, and the first thing that is standing out as the most obvious thing about this full moon and the energy we're probably going to feel the most is that it is conjunct Uranus. Now, Uranus is a planet of the higher mind. Think about Mercury being more of that part of us that thinks and analyzes and communicates and processes and teaches and learns and deals with the paperwork. Um, whereas Uranus can be more of that higher mind kind of energy, like something that goes beyond what we can comprehend, something that is awakened in some way. In fact, Uranus is known to bring awakening of some kind of like a flash of insight, or kind of like that electrical feeling in our bodies when our kundalini starts to rise, and it can like actually open us and purge things for us, and heighten our senses and bring us into an awakening or new level of consciousness in some kind. Okay, so that is possible with Uranus here conjunct the full moon around this time. Uranus is known to be very disruptive, sometimes chaotic, sometimes very much unpredictable. So, one thing we can maybe mark around this time is something can happen really quickly out of nowhere that we can't predict, that can really cause a chaotic disruption, or just, yeah, some type of change that happens in our lives. Now, I like to think of Uranus as kind of like that genius energy, that higher mind. It might create those disruptions. It might create that unpredictable chaos, but within the chaos, something is happening, something is changing. And if it's not changing physically in our lives, then it's definitely changing energetically within us. All right. So, being that it's in an earth sign, likely we're going to feel this full moon a lot in our bodies. Uranus is known to bring about that anxious feeling, sometimes that feeling of wanting to rebel or break through or kind of revolutionize something in your life. And so there could be an antsy feeling that we're feeling in the collective around this time, an anxious feeling. Our nervous systems might be heightened. You might have trouble sleeping around this full moon. You might actually have some insomnia going on around this full moon if you're sensitive to energy. But there might be a collective feeling of buzzing, of revolution, of rebelling, of wanting to make a change happen. I mean, we're going to come to a lot of clarity around this time around some kind of change that is solidifying. And, being in Taurus, being an earth sign, it's going to feel very real. It's going to feel very real. And the best example I have for you is kind of like the difference between like someone who is engaged, getting ready to be married, and they're having fun being like the groom or the bride, and they're planning the wedding and they're picking out the details and they're going into fantasy and la la land and honeymoon about this beautiful commitment that's happening in their lives, and this new level that's happening in their lives, this level that they're coming into. It's like a natural progression of events that's taking things to the next level, right? And then you finally do get married, or you're like getting married, and you're kind of having that moment of like, oh, this is getting very real. Like, I'm actually doing this, and this is actually happening, and this is my new life. And I actually have to allow myself to transform and update and become someone, a new version of me, so that I can really embrace this new change that's very real, and it's got more weight to it. It's solidified. Like, I was getting ready for the change, and now the change is here. The change is actually happening. And that's kind of what I'm feeling about the full moon around this time. Everyone might be responding to this very differently, depending on your personal chart and your personal placements and how this full moon is hitting your natal chart. So if you want some more clarity about how it's affecting you personally, um, this would be a great time to book a natal chart reading, and we can go over your natal chart, and I can go over the transits and start to give you some themes um, about what might be changing in your lives. But generally speaking, if you are looking at your chart, if you look at the house in your chart that's ruled by Taurus, this is going to be the house where that full moon is happening. That's where something is coming to a culmination, an ending, a change, a next level, something solidifying there. And that will give you some hints and clues as to maybe some of the themes that you can expect around this time showing up for you, the themes that usually fall within that house that's ruled by Taurus. Okay, so Taurus, there's another layer I want to address here with Uranus. Uranus can also be very different. It can be very outside the box. It can be very quirky. Um, it like more of the shadow side of Taurus, not Taurus, but Uranus that I'm feeling is that it can be related to being very different. Think about the genius that doesn't fit inside society. Think about, you know, um, someone that's so different that they're outcasted. They just don't fit in, in some way. They don't fit in the box. And so this can be a full moon that kind of illuminates something, reveals something about our differences, about how we're different, and possibly how we don't fit in the box. It can be very clarifying in that way as well, and shine a light on our individuality and our differences in some way as well, especially around our values, um, and our foundations, and even our finances and our security in general. So I want to explore some of the aspects here with you. Um, yeah, starting with the moon. The moon, the full moon, it always opposes the sun, um, which is in Scorpio, right? And this all being placed kind of in the last decan of Taurus and Scorpio. So for Taurus, this is more of uh, kind of an energy with Taurus that's a little bit more initiative. This might initiate like a change, for example, around the full moon, or initiate an insight or an awakening, or it might initiate a pivot of some kind. Um, Taurus tends to be slow, tends to be steady, stable, reliable, practical, logical. It's feminine, so it's receptive. Um, whereas Scorpio, the tension here is, where Scorpio can be extreme. It can be very psychological, can be very deep, intuitive, psychic, emotional, brooding, obsessive, um, controlling, things like that, attached. Um, and then we've got this trine. We've got a trine with Pluto here at the 29th degree, touching this full moon here. So right off the bat, this is a very fast energy that comes in around the full moon. Pluto often brings a sense of, it can bring crisis really quickly. It can bring a type of purging really quickly. Um, it can bring a transformation in very quickly. It can have us somehow unexpectedly have to deal with something, move through our shadows of some kind. Um, Pluto at the 29th degree, like I've been mentioning in my past videos, is wrapping up that long cycle in Capricorn. And it's an intense degree. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's kind of pretty intense. Um, and a lot of this karmic ending is kind of happening around this cycle. And so, I sense with this trine with Pluto that this is a very fast purging experience. This is a very fast for some, like let's talk about the moon as an ending. If this is an ending that's happening in your life, it can happen very quickly. Um, it's giving me ego death vibes. It's giving me like Kali kind of energy where it can just happen really fast. Like Kali is a goddess that's like an ego slayer, and she comes in and she just slices the head off the ego, and it can be almost like, oh my God, it can be a little bit like, wow, that happened really fast and I wasn't prepared for it and it was unexpected and like that just changed. That just changed everything. That's a big transformation. One of the reasons why I'm mentioning this energy of like cutting off the head is that there's actually a fixed star named Algol around the same degree of the moon and Uranus coming into this full moon. And Algol is a fixed star. But essentially, like if you're thinking about an archetype, you can think about that archetype of like beheading and like, public figures that are being taken down and like, Medusa and having to chop off her head and kind of like that energy of like the downfall of, a higher power. And, we've got Pluto trining this. Now, a trine is a supportive aspect, but it can also just be like an energy that really comes in fast. And so this could be a moment here of drama, where like something comes in fast and ends something, abruptly. It could be like an ego death kind of experience or just a fast death kind of experience or something that ends, kind of quickly. Um, and it could be a bit of an intense kind of experience. It could be chaotic. It could be initiating a type of crisis at the worst case scenario. Now, I really don't see that happening on a personal level for a lot of you. So I don't want you to freak out about this. So just take a deep breath in. This what I actually see for most of us here dealing with this full moon is we're coming into something bigger. We're coming into our self-worth in a bigger way. We're coming into something that's more secure in a bigger way. For some of us, that's going to be related to money and finances, where like something is it's like if you're a sailor and you go out and you collect oysters for a living or something. And you're used to finding all these little small oysters, and you make a living making all these little small oysters. And then suddenly you find the giant oyster, and it's just a very big oyster. And you can, it's more valuable. It's got a bigger oyster inside of it, a bigger pearl. And you can make more money off of it. And it's rare, it's big, it's special, it's worth more, right? That's kind of the feeling I get for most of us on an energetic level, is that we're coming into a lot more worth, a lot more self-worth. We're coming into a bigger way of expressing ourselves. Um, and we're coming into more of our value on an individual level. And that's kind of what I see for most people. But, I'm talking about like the stuff around the ego death and the things coming out of nowhere and things changing out of nowhere and endings happening out of nowhere. This is something that we might just, be seeing happening on a collective level. Like, oh, look what happened in the news, or look what happened over here. Like something unexpected happened, something ended, something, disruptive happened, with an earth sign, this could easily be like an earthquake or something. It could be a natural disaster, like we could see, I don't know, with a conjunct algal, we could see a public figure, kind of be taken down on some level, like a karmic ending of some kind. So that's possible. It could strike a crisis. It could strike a revolution. It could something like that could happen. So I'm just saying that because I'm I'm shooting off potentials here of what could possibly happen with a full moon like this. It could be like with Pluto trining a full moon like this. Pluto can make something magnified, can make like a really big change, and it can be like more outward, or it could be more inward. This could be a full moon where like everyone's just feeling this like deep internal transformation and purging going on. Or you might see it magnified outwards in the collective where it's like, whoa, this thing happened and everyone's feeling it and everyone's exposed to it and everyone's going through a transformation because of it. So expect the unexpected around this time. Either way, it's in sextile to Neptune. So Neptune, gives us that opportunity to really dissolve things, you know, dissolve something. So with the trine with Pluto and the sextile with Neptune, again, we might be dissolving something within us, like a power structure. There might be an energetic dissolving of like a wound, or there might be a release or a purge. Like Pluto definitely brings about purges. This would be a fast purge. And if we were having a purge, it would be a deep purge at this time. Um, Now, I was really feeling this in the body when I was tuning into the energy of this full moon. A lot of us, that are sensitive to energy, gonna feel it in the head, like I mentioned. Some of us are gonna feel it in the third chakra. All right, so Taurus is ruled by Venus, and so it's kind of important to take a look at what's going on with Venus, and Venus will be in Capricorn. Um, So Venus in Capricorn is, again, another earth energy, receptive, practical, logical, embodied. Um, you know, will work hard, will show commitment in a relationship, will do the work, will be reliable in a relationship, will show up responsibly in a relationship, is willing to commit and go through, all kinds of hardships and stay committed in a relationship. Like Venus in Capricorn can be very committed and loyal in a lot of ways, very reliable. And it can be serious, and it can be practical too, in like more of like that acts of service kind of way. Um, and it can be ambitious. Capricorn is ambitious. But we do see Venus squaring the South Node and the North Node. Um, and so what that tells me is that there is something very challenging happening with our relationships at this time. You know, Collectively, I feel like this is obvious. We just had an election in the United States, and I think there's a lot of division, obviously, and people are either extremely excited about the results or they're extremely devastated about the results. It's a very difficult time for, I think, relationships on a collective level. On a personal level, there might be that, struggle or tension or challenge around how to be diplomatic, how to be fair, how to please, have harmony and balance in our relationships, and the challenge with how to put ourselves first, how to honor our personal needs and really go in a new direction, how to explore a new way to show up in our relationships. So I think this change um, is allowing us to make a pivot in our relationships. It's maybe a challenging pivot where we might be challenged to maybe repeat some of these old patterns with the South Node. Like, okay, let's just keep repeating the same old pattern and go through the same old experience and have this pattern show up that is old, that we've outgrown, right? And that's karmic, that we're done with. And then the challenge of, actually coming into a new way of a relationship, like a new experience with relationships, a new development in our relationship. So this change is still kind of happening in this relationship access between the North Node in Aries, the direction that we're going in, a new experience that we're going into, okay, related to our individual self. And then Libra, the South Node here, um, our relationships, the balance and harmony within our relationships, and much more. So, yeah, there's a little bit of a headlock of like, we want to get away from this old stuff, but maybe like it's got a grip on us. And then we see the direction we want to go, but we have to kind of like, you know, move through this challenge in order to go in that direction. Okay. Interestingly enough, we also have an in conjunction with Mars here. Mars is going to be in Leo. Leo, um, Leo with Mars, like this is that side of us. Well, first of all, Mars is all about our motivation, our ambition, moving through obstacles. Um, it can also, show us our anger, our conflict, our obstacles, separation, division. Um, it can be malefic in that way. Um, this is the way we assert ourselves. And in Leo, Leo is a natural leader. Leo is creative and talented and showy and dramatic and um, it's heart-based and generous and it shines like the sun. And we've got an in conjunction with Venus to Mars, which means something can be like overexpressed or underexpressed. So right off the bat, there can be something about our relationships where we're like being too assertive, too controlling, too dramatic, get too much, right? Um, or where we're not being assertive enough, where we're having a hard time asserting ourselves. What I'm sensing about this is kind of like this dynamic or a relational energy that I'm feeling, um, where we've been catering to, um, like on a collective level, we've been catering to the shadows of our relationships. Like it's like having a passion. Like I have this passion to create something, really special and really different and really new and something that hasn't been created before. And I have a lot of passion to create this. And I'm going to go create it. I'm going to go put my energy to it and just move towards it and create it. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to do that thing. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, you get disrupted, things start intervening in the process. It's like all these relationships start getting in the way. And they're all saying, focus your creative energy on this, or focus your creative energy on that, or give your energy to my problem, or do it my way, or create this instead, or let's go through this experience that is like full of suffering and wounds and awfulness, and it's like all I wanted to do is put my energy towards my creation and my creative ability and what I want to create. And then I have to deal with all of these like little relationship shadows, in all of my relationships. Like, and where you maybe have not been assertive and said, you know what, I'm not dealing with your shadow today. I have to focus on what I want to create. Or I'm not going to give my energy towards a relational shadow anymore. I'm not going to enable and give my creative energy to an experience that I don't want to have, And so I sense like the lack of assertiveness, like where we've been, instead of being able to give our energy to ourselves, Leo, it can be very much like the sun, everything's focused around the sun, like I want to give my energy to myself. And this is where we haven't been able to be assertive or take the lead in our relationships, and instead possibly been distracted in our relationships or give our energy towards something else regarding our relationships that isn't very direct, and so that's what I'm noticing with the energy that I'm feeling about it. It's like a lack of being able to assert ourselves creatively in our relationships, and where we're falling into old patterns. The South Node is still in a, wide conjunction with Lilith. It's 10 degrees from Lilith. So the flavor of those patterns that we've outgrown have been things that sexual wounds, things we suppressed, where we're too people pleasy, where we're passive, where we're not, or avoiding conflict, like, the shadow side of Libra definitely avoids conflict, doesn't like anyone to be disappointed with them, upset them, you know, yada yada. So I feel like we're working through that typical kind of shadowy Libra kind of energy. Now, with that said, I want to talk a little bit about Mars because Mars is still going to be in opposition to Pluto at this time. And we've all been feeling it. I've mentioned it before, but this is just like a very intense aspect, where it's just people are, I mean, talk about power struggles and conflicts and power and control dynamics. Like it's, like boiling, it's like hitting a boiling point. It's like an intense energy here. And I just want to remind everyone that um, this is like a sacred anger right now. This opposition is helping us on a soul level or on a divine level or on a spiritual level be done with this cycle. Pluto's at the 29th degree in Capricorn. We are wrapping up a cycle. Pluto leaves Capricorn, I think like 4 days later on November 19th. Okay, this is happening on the 15th. And then Pluto actually leaves Capricorn like on the 19th, like soon after this full moon. So this is the last like hurrah of being done with something in Capricorn. We're never going back. Okay, there is whatever change starts to happen here, we are not going back. It's just like spiritual awakening. Once you awaken, you cannot go back. And this is one of those full moons that whatever is changing, whatever comes to culmination at this time, you're not going back. You can't go back. Okay. It's like graduating uh, college and you're done with college and you're not going back. You're done with high school. You graduate high school, it's time for you to go to college. You're not going back to high school. You're not going back. You're a wild animal that's born and you're nesting with your mother, and then you mature and you grow into, a mature animal and you leave the nest. You're not going back. You're not going back to the nest. You're done. It's like a natural progression of being done with something. Like whatever we're done, that anger is a sacred anger to help us purge. It's to help us purge this ending because we are not going back. We are done with something, right? Okay. This power and control stuff, it's coming up for so many people, especially those of us who, are going through a spiritual evolution. I mean, we're all just kind of like, "Ah," we can really feel it. It's just, you know, so irritating and angry and stressed and like, pushing and pulling and controlling and domination and authority and just blah, like, um, it's it's a lot happening inside of us and outside of us. So this is my reminder to you. Um, if you start feeling rage, you start feeling anger, feel it. Okay. Try not to resist it and go on a rage and, externalize it. Do your best to feel that anger because it's going to help you purge something inside of you. And it's going to give you a transformation when you do that. Okay. All right. Um, Mars is trining the North Node again. It's going to be, action that we're taking at this time, our motivation, our energy. It's really just going towards something new. It's going towards a new direction, a new way of being, um, a new development in our lives that we haven't been before. And we have the opportunity, to let something go because there's a separation here, with the Mars in sextile to the South Node. We have the opportunity to let something go, leave something behind, outgrow something. Again, this can be very natural because we've got Venus in Capricorn, we've got the full moon in Taurus, and we have Pluto in Capricorn. So there's that earthy energy there. So I feel like there's this is kind of like a natural progression of events. I do want to look at this chart as a whole again because, there's something interesting that I'm noticing that I want to point out. And there's this kind of mystical rectangle shape happening here in this full moon. And this kind of allows us to, it kind of exposes us to kind of the mystery of of how things play out in our universe. Like it can really, put us through an experience that's just kind of like, whoa, like look at how all of this is happening, and I want to understand it or learn about it, or this experience is helping me kind of understand the, intricate nature of all of our being and of our universe, and how it all works. And that's why it's kind of a mystical rectangle. But a mystical rectangle also has some tension to it, because we have this opposition here going on. We have the opposition during this full moon. Okay. So again, full moon can bring up a release. So this release that's coming up to the surface is going to happen fast. It could be very deep. Um, Seeing that it's an opposition to Scorpio, and we've got the Pluto trining the moon, but also we have Chiron opposing Lilith. Okay, Chiron, the wounded healer, opposing Lilith. Guess what kind of wounds are coming up to the surface right now? Our own individual wounds, maybe that stem from relationships, okay, that are maybe sexual wounds, or where, again, like we've been too people pleasy, suppressing ourselves, not putting ourselves first. Our inner child, Aries, can very much bring up inner child stuff, but this could be like a tension point that's coming up to a surface, the release that's happening. It could be like a wound that's coming up to the surface. Even Lilith can bring up wounds around being exiled, being too different, um, being weird, being taboo, and again with Uranus conjunct this moon, it can give that vibe for some of us. We might be releasing a wound around being like the ugly duckling, like rejection stuff, like where we have spent our whole lives being too different, too weird, too taboo, too interesting, whatever. And that has caused a lot of suffering, a lot of wounding around being rejected, not fitting in, being isolated, being exiled, being outcasted, being rejected, going through hardships, kind of like that ugly duckling story, going through the hardships of rejection and being too different. But this full moon could provide like a transformation or a transmutation where we take those kind of I'm too different type of wounds, and all of a sudden we come into clarity of who we really are. And we're like, oh, I'm the swan. I'm not an ugly duckling. I'm actually a swan and I belong here and I fit in here. And this is my value. And look how beautiful I am. And look how valuable I am. And there was nothing wrong about me from the beginning. Now I'm just like owning who I really am, and that could also be an experience around this full moon. It could bring about an experience where it's like, oh, like, I'm so much bigger than I thought I was. I'm so much different than I thought I was. And this is like a realization or like an illumination or a clarity experience that's helping me like value myself more and heal from all of those experiences of hardship. It's kind of like healing the ugly duckling story. That's a possibility around this kind of energy. We also have the tension between um, Mercury in Sagittarius and Jupiter in Gemini. Jupiter's still going to go retrograde. So we're in the shadow period of Mercury going retrograde. It hasn't gone retrograde yet, but it will. And oftentimes this could be a tension of deep reflection um, going on. Where we have to really go deep within us, really reflect and learn and be curious about some of the dualities going on, some of the details going on, on a mental level, our beliefs possibly, our thinking possibly. Um, yeah, Mercury is in detriment in Sagittarius. It actually doesn't do very well there. Sagittarius is very broad, philosophical. Mercury is more detailed. Um, we're looking at our beliefs right now. Um, Especially where maybe we've had some stubborn thinking. Because we do have Mercury square Saturn. Sorry, can't think right now. Um, Mercury's squaring Saturn. Saturn is in a T square here between, Mercury and Jupiter. So we might be thinking very seriously at this time. We might have some stubborn beliefs at this time. We might have some, depressing thoughts at this time. We might really have to put in some more work or rework our thinking and like really rework some of our philosophies and our beliefs at this time. We might have a challenge with our thoughts and our beliefs and our thinking around this time for sure. Because Mercury is also in trine with Chiron, I really just think that there's a possibility around this full moon where we are purging some mental wounds, some mental wounds that are related to our relationships. It could be just the negative stories we've been telling ourselves. I'm too different. I'm bad. I'm not good enough. Like this isn't working for me. Like this is going to be awful. This is going to be horrible. Like whatever it is, um, mental stuff is definitely coming up to the surface for healing really fast at this time. In summary, I would say that this full moon could bring about an ending. It could bring about a crisis. It could bring about a change. It could bring about something that gets taken to a higher level. It could bring about an awakening of some kind. It could bring about a very fast transformational change that could be possibly chaotic or disruptive at this time. Um, it's going to help us pivot in a new direction. That could be challenging to do so, having to let go of old patterns, especially in our relationships, and go towards new ways of showing up. On a very positive note, I feel a heightening of something, like solidifying something, taking something to a higher level, taking something to a bigger level, taking something into more value, solidifying our value, coming into more value. This can affect, again, our finances. Some of us might be coming into making more money at this time or building a stronger foundation, like making a change so that there can be a stronger foundation at this time, building something in a new way, an awakening, an insight about ourselves, um, healing, wounding. Again, I think it could be shadowy with Pluto trining the moon. I think there could definitely be some shadowy stuff going on with uh, Lilith in sextile to Mercury. And I know I kind of been saying that a lot in all of my videos, but we're in the middle of Scorpio season. I don't know what you want me to say. Like I'm just trying to report what's happening. Don't get mad at me. Like get mad at the astrology. The astrology is showing us, the dynamic of things, the archetypical energy of things, and like, honey, we are going through some shadowy stuff right now. So I'm not trying to, you know, fear monger anyone. I'm trying to help you get through this. One thing I love about astrology is it can give us a bird's eye view so that when we're going through it, we're like, okay, I understand why this is happening. I have a perspective on it. It's kind of making sense to me. I get the idea of what's going on. But obviously, it can bring up lots of anxiety as well because then your mind can try to figure out and try to predict what's going to happen. So now I'm going to leave you with some things to help you, some things to help you get through this full moon. Some of the physical symptoms you might experience around this full moon is pressure in your head, headaches in your head, and even just darker thoughts, shadowy stuff, shadowy thinking. Your wounds might be coming up to the surface, and you might feel those wounds in your heart, in your chest, okay, in your gut, around those areas as well. This could be a time of tension, continued conflict, power and control stuff coming up. Um, this could be a time of purging. Okay, this could be a time of, um, it feels very detoxy. Okay, and so on a physical level, if you want to support yourself on a physical level, do basic stuff that supports your physical body. Like make sure you are, if you're angry, like go get some exercise, go do body stuff, like go dance, go hike, go do exercise in the gym, get that frustration out, like direct that anger in a healthy way. Okay. Do body stuff. Drink lots of water. Whenever you're going through a major energetic purge, a deep purge, it can feel detoxy. You can feel cranky. You can feel irritable. You can feel snappy and grumpy. You can feel tired. This would be a good time to get extra sleep. Good luck with the moon conjunct Uranus. But yes, if you can get some extra sleep before this full moon or after this full moon, definitely do that. Drink lots of water. And practically, like with your schedule, especially if you have personal placements, around the later degrees, between like 20 and 29 degrees of the fixed signs, like you're going to want to maybe carve out some spacious time around this time because something unpredictable could happen. It's possible that your day gets disrupted. It just doesn't go the way you thought it would go, and you need to be able to have that spaciousness to change something or to handle the situation. Okay. So that's a practical tip. Um, as far as managing your energy, when you're dealing with the power and control stuff, um, the best thing to do is some shadow work. And what I recommend is just sitting down and working with those parts of you that are coming up to the surface, that have those wounded stories that are self-sabotaging. And instead of reacting and taking action, instead, get to know these parts of you, bring awareness to them, bring love and compassion to them, and ultimately give yourself what you need to kind of start that integration process. If you are going through a time where you need support, I offer personal sessions, intuitive readings, energy healings, energy counseling. And in those sessions, I can lead you through some shadow work, some integration work, um, or facilitate a healing, whatever will help you the most. Get some clarity if you're not sure how to navigate the internal environment that you're in. You can get some clarity. You can be guided through that. You can get some understanding about your patterns if you need to, where you're growing, how you're growing, what your next step is. So you can find all that information, natal chart reading, personal sessions, information below in the description box. Another practical tip coming through is be willing to change. This, Taurus, if we think about that energy of Taurus, it can be very reliable, it can be very stable and very steady, and it's a fixed sign. And so that's a very positive side to Taurus. And one of the shadow sides to Taurus is it can be too stubborn. It can get stuck. It can not move and budge. It can be fixed, right? So, if something is coming up around this full moon, like in the most loving way, recognize where maybe you've been too stubborn and be willing to make a change, be willing to make a pivot, be willing to take a new direction, a new approach, entertain something new. Like, this is probably not the time to grip onto something, attach to something, and like control it and make it stay the way it's been. This is a time to kind of, in the most loving way, in the most compassionate way, in the most supportive way, breathe into a new change, that's happening. Breathe into it. Uranus, it can bring about disruptions and chaos and change. Um, but a lot of times you look back on the change that happens and say, you know what, that really needed to happen. Or, you know what, like ultimately that benefited me in the long run. Like, that was crazy, but it kind of helped me. And, looking back like 5, 10 years later, you're like, yeah, that was a really, unpredictable time. It was stressful or chaotic, but look where it got me now. And, sometimes we do need to embrace change, and just trust the process. Uranus is bringing about change. It's of the higher mind. It definitely supports breakthroughs. It supports revolutions. It supports, you know, freedom and liberation. Okay. And so even if we don't like the change that's happening in the moment, we might want to, open up to more insight about, you know, something higher than us, something more expanded than us, something that has a different insight than us, something outside of the box that might be leading us towards change that will be beneficial over time, more liberating, more freeing over time. So try to keep a positive mindset, even though, actually, screw that. You don't have to keep a positive mindset. I mean, look what's going on planet Earth right now. Like, it's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging, probably, to have a positive mindset around this time. With Mercury squaring Saturn, you're going to have to work harder to be more optimistic at this time. That's the challenge. Things might feel harsh, restricted, just weighted, more serious. There might be some things weighing on us, our responsibilities, the hardships, whatever. Um, but yeah, cultivating optimism, cultivating an abundant mindset, cultivating um, more of a positive mindset or more of a growth oriented mindset might be more of the realistic thing to work through at this time. Cultivating more of a growth oriented mindset. You don't have to be positive, but can you take a step? Can you be more growth oriented? Can you use this experience to help you grow? Can you take the opportunity of this experience? Right. So for those of you that like to journal, um, there could be some themes. I would work with Uranus at this time. So there could be themes around change that you want to journal about. Has there been a natural progression of events happening in your life at this time where it's time to take something to a new level? You're taking it to an elevated level. A natural progression of events that you're ready to take to an elevated level. How could you allow yourself to break through old patterns of self-worth and come into higher worth, higher self-esteem, where you know your value? In fact, make a list of your value, especially your value that you bring to anything in your life, especially areas of your life where you feel invalidated and weak, like you're struggling, like you have no value. Start to bring awareness to that and actually write down things that you love about yourself, that are good about yourself, that you bring value to in your life. in specific areas, in specific relationships, or broad areas, whatever you want to work with. You could also work with Uranus as an energy that helps you break through something and liberates you. And so if there is something that has been very stubborn in your life, like a pattern that's been very stubborn, you could ask Uranus to kind of give you that insight into how to break that pattern, how to pivot that pattern, how to liberate yourself, how to break through. Maybe you've had a very painful experience or an experience of suffering, and there's just something that you're ready to break through and release and free yourself. Okay. How are you different? What is your ugly duckling story in your life? Where have you been rejected? Where have you not fit in? And where can you actually reframe that experience and start to own what makes you special and different and unique and step into a new direction that helps support you being special and unique and different? What can you do? What kind of changes can you make to embrace who you are now, who you've become, the new you? How can you take up more space, be bigger, and stop acting so small? These are some of the things that you can journal about if you want to bring more awareness, more consciousness, or you just want to give yourself time to digest and integrate and process some of the things that might be coming up for you right now. Another thing that I think could be a good journal prompt is talking about your relationship to asserting yourself in relationships and boundaries, and especially where you haven't been able to really take the lead in your creative energy and give your creative energy to what you want to give it to. Where have you been distracted in relationships, sidetracked, disrupted, intervened, drained, blocked? What are your patterns around giving your energy to yourself? That is a great journaling prompt, something that you can also work through around this time. Start to come into more clarity about your next step around asserting yourself as a leader in relationships, maybe in more an authentic way or creative way, and really how you can give more of your creative energy to yourself and your what you value. All right, guys. This is just a reminder that if you like these videos, please subscribe to my channel, like the video, it helps me out a lot. And let me know if you have any placements in Taurus. What kind of placements do you have on Taurus? Let me know if you have any placements in the fixed signs. Let me know what you've been going through, if you've been having any patterns showing up, or just write down what you are starting to value more in your lives. Write something to me. Say hello to me. I want to hear from you. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if there's something you want me to cover in these full moon, new moon updates that I'm not doing. I'd love to hear from you. So write a comment. And yeah, if you want some more information around how to work with me, you can find some information in the description box below. I do offer free 15-minute consultations to new clients. All right, guys, take care. Have a very awakening full moon. Bye.